So we're picking up on this Arctic trip at a place called Pickle Lake, which is in central Ontario. Really just stopped there to get fuel and straight out of there on a 3.5-hour flight, a long flight over the wilderness to a place called Gillam, and that's in Manitoba. You've got about 1,000, well, they did about 1,000 people there, and mostly sustained by Manitoba Hydro. They have 3 dams there, and it was a great place. Didn't really have a lot of choice to stop, again, on fuel if you want to get to Churchill. Avgas is probably the only stop. But this is kind of where you start to get the feeling like you're getting close to the Arctic. Gravel runways, the trees are getting much smaller, more sparse. And it's a cool place because it's right on the Nelson River. And of course, there's a lot of wildlife here, and it was a great place to refuel and hang my hat for an evening, and spent the night here.
From Baker Lake, the longest route we'll be taking will be up to Cambridge Bay, which is here. This is King William Island. This is where the ships were frozen. This is where they drifted in the pack ice and sunk in this area here. And many of the men abandoned ship and marched this way and starved along this route, along this peninsula here, Starvation Cove. And what we're going to actually try to do from there is do some work in this area here, but also fly up to Resolute. This route up Prince of Wales Island, all the way up to this is Resolute, and this is Devon Island, and this is where the ships first wintered.
So Churchill is not that far away, maybe an hour flight from here direct, but I wanted to check out the Nelson River. And I wanted to check out a cool place that I've always wanted to see called York Factory. And it goes back to the 1600s it was built, and it was a Hudson Bay trading company post, very, very famous. And I wanted to fly around there and check it out, not land, and then see some of the sights. So these pictures are from the evening before, and I didn't know it, but there was a problem developing. I had refueled the plane from 55-gallon drums with a portable pump, and I was careless with the left fuel tank cap. And unfortunately, the cap was left off. I had no idea, and this was to cause a huge problem on this leg, and you'll see. So an uneventful takeoff, everything going smooth as normal, climbing out, looking forward to the Nelson River, flying over the dams, but little did I know the whole time, out of my port fuel tank, there was fuel, avgas, just slowly streaming out. Oh man, was it amazing. I mean, when I got out to Hudson Bay, where that Nelson River comes out, I started to see all kinds of cool stuff. I was circling around Port Nelson here, and I saw trading posts. I think it looked like old abandoned HBC stuff, bridges, shipwrecks. I mean, shipwrecks? There were shipwrecks everywhere. It would be so cool to land. I was so tempted to land, taxi up, explore. What if there was a skeleton inside? Actually, that that's another story, but there was just shipwreck after shipwreck, and of course I couldn't land. I mean, the water was murky, boulders, and the bigger thing is the tides. There'd be no way, but this shipwreck coming up here along the shore, I think was, for some reason for me, was the most haunting. It just looked like it was sitting there, frozen in time, and I just imagined what would it be like to go explore in there. So then, of course, I circled down and headed to York Factory, and man, that was amazing. So I circled York Factory a couple times, and I was tempted to land. I mean, there was a dock there, and it would have been so easy, but again, the tides and fooling around, I was like, I wanted to get going because my next vector was north, and pre-planned, I was really looking forward to flying over the coastline, which is in this area is the polar bear denning area, and has the highest density of polar bears in the world. And you know what? I got low, and all I saw was polar bears. I mean, everywhere. And you know what was crazy? Every one of them was huge. Every one. I didn't see one small polar bear. Of course, they're all here because they can't be on the ice because the ice is melted, and they're trying to get what they can. And there were caribou, and there were some small herds, and I did see a few occasions with some stalking going on, even just buzzing by at probably 90 miles an hour. So I continued on, and I wanted to get to this place called the Owl River, and I just kept seeing larger bears. I mean, it was crazy. It was like they weren't big already. They just seemed to be getting bigger and bigger, and in this zone, over the Owl River, this mini delta, there were some real biggies. So I circled this area for a little while, did a few loops looking at these monster polar bears and checking out the river delta, and it was very intriguing. In fact, I noticed there were some artifacts, looked like leftovers from the Cold War, just scraps and pieces of who knows what, rusting away. I mean, we're getting close to Churchill now, and that was a U.S. Army base, huge base for during the Cold War. So after checking out the Owl River, it was time to keep heading north and flying along the coastline, seeing bears more and more. And I decided to fly a little more inland, and that's when in the distance I saw this massive, massive bear, and I started heading right towards it. I was like, I gotta check this thing out.
Alright, we're a little farther inland here. We've got they're always hunting this caribou right here. It's a big one. Oh, it's a young one. Look at this. We got a hunter here. Big polar bear right here. Look at this guy. He's a monster. There's another baby caribou right here. He's hunting them. Look at that.
Well, remember that little fuel problem? Well, the engine just stopped right then. And I just had a few seconds to make a decision, and I had to put it down. I had to put it down quick or risk stalling the aircraft. I did have one chance to restart the engine. I just had I was unable to lean down to change the fuel tanks because of my shoulder harness. And I didn't fool around with it. I just said, get it down, and I picked this tiny little pond.
Couldn't be more than a city block long. Not much room to make an emergency landing, which is what we had to do here. Hit the middle of this pond, got it down safely, and then hit the tundra probably at 20 knots.
Well, I had just passed over that huge polar bear when that happened, and all I could think about was get the gun loaded and get the sat phone out and get on top of the airplane, get out of the airplane.
Anything approaching too close. We've got our eye on 3 polar bears right now. We got that one over there. I'll try to get a shot of. So again, we're in good shape. And here's a shot. You can see where we came off. There's the tracks over there. Zoom in on that.
Well, I couldn't resist putting the camera out there on the tripod and doing a time release because I knew I would never get another chance to see this. It was really crazy.
Oh, there he is. He's moving. All right, he's about a mile away. Keeps sticking his head up, looking. Looks like he's moving to the north. Got a caribou grazing just off the nose. Bull just walking along. We're well armed, and we've actually got these snapper loads, so we don't have to, potentially shoot them if he gets too close. We can just send these. Look at that beast. Big.
So here's search and rescue coming in. It was only a couple hours later and probably good. Scared the bear away. I did have to pop a couple of cracker shells at him. He got a little too close. I was on top of the airplane. I didn't want to be stuck inside, but this was a welcome sight out of Churchill. So we came back with the helicopter and had a couple of Parks Canada guys and the helicopter pilot, Louis. And remember the Owl River? We were able to go down there and get some scrap metal, bring it up, make a fulcrum, and get this thing back on its landing gear. It didn't sink. And we were right in front of these lines of beach ridges, so the idea was to do a short field takeoff, and it happened. So this time, guess what? It was a direct straight flight back to Churchill, no coastline. And got back there, no issues, no problems, and everything was great. I was so thrilled to be back on the road again. So before heading up to the high Arctic, I thought I'd hang out in Churchill a few days and check out some of the sites, which there are many. What a cool place. Animals, shipwrecks, seals, polar bears, beluga whales, the list goes on, and they're all right there. This is the SS Ithaca. This has been here a while and tempting to walk out to, but you could get stuck when the tide comes in, and it's much farther out than it looks, so I stayed away. I stayed with just taking video, but there's a lot of things to see in Churchill. I mean, there's the Prince of Wales Fort, there's a cool place called Sloop Cove, and hey, more polar bears.